Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeremy, and today on our 86 project, Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, we're going to put on some new headers. Which one? Let's get into it. All right, here are the headers that came on the car. They were on there when I bought it. The problem is I can't figure out what kind of headers these are, and that's a problem because on these third gens, you need to have a Y pipe, which is right here that I picked up. And they are very, very expensive, these Y pipes. And I was not willing to risk a couple $100 on buying a Y pipe that was not going to fit. So I found someone in Buffalo that was selling these hooker headers, which are a little bit bigger, 3-inch opening, that fit the Y pipe and also fit the rest of the exhaust, which we have over here. And it was much cheaper. Well, it wasn't much cheaper. Got that whole exhaust for about $700 used. So here we go. Let's start putting that in. So I did attempt starting to put one of the headers in loosely because I didn't have the hardware, just to see what we were working with. And I ran into this little bracket here that looks like it's securing power steering a little bit. That is really, really tight and almost hitting. My dad came up with a good point saying, when that header heats up, that little flange or this little piece may start to impede with that. So I'm going to pull this header completely off, and I'm going to take a little file to it. Hopefully we don't have to take the grinder out, but let's do that now. All right, let's pull this off. These should just be loosely in there. Yep. All right, let's try this. This isn't going to work. This is the wrong kind of grinder. God. Can't find your tools. Ouch. Yeah, that's not gonna work. We gotta go find a grinder. All right, let's try this without shredding the valve cover, grinding it. Should probably have some safety eyewear on. All right, doesn't need much. Probably. Oh, come on. How close are you? Come on. Come on. That is tight. Yeah, a little bit of. Put one bolt in there. Where are you? Now we got some clearance there. Still tight, but it's not going to expand that much. Just lean over. Oh, ow, Jesus. All right, here's the new hardware I ordered. I would have had no problem using the old hardware, except it was all mismatched. So might as well just bite the bullet and do it. All right, before I put this in, just gonna clean it up a little bit. All right, so here I loosely put the header in with just 2 bolts on both sides, and then pushed in the gasket, and then really worked to try to line up all the holes from the gasket so that I could put the rest of the hardware in. Problem. This guy. It's a 12 point, and I can't get anything on there. No, that don't matter. That's the only one. What am I going to do? Let me think on this for a minute. So after thinking about this overnight, I decided my best option was going to be able to grind down an old wrench. Thought this was going to work, but it actually ended up failing miserably. The little wrench lasted a few minutes, but then completely broke when I tried to torque it down a little bit. Still didn't fit well in there, but it didn't work. I really wanted to keep this hardware on there, but in the end, I had to go back to the 6-point and use that hardware. At this point, I was kind of starting to get frustrated, decided to torque down the ones that I could as much as possible, hoping I'd still be able to figure out a way to get that one bolt torqued down enough, nice and snug. And then my dog needed attention. If you're going to be messing with me, you got to go out. Come on. Come on. I got to... Out. You can go in. Thank you. All right, they're all torqued on except for this one. Broke my tool. It was a really crappy wrench anyway, and I think it was the wrong size. So this header was much more difficult to get in. It was really tight. It took a little bit of finagling, but I did get it in. And on this side, a few more bolts did not fit, and I just gave up and decided to go with the 6-point and get the stubby on there and tighten it as much as I possibly could. It took a while, but it did get done. Okay, headers are in. I had to swap out these for some 6-point bolts. I would highly recommend not using 12-point. It's just not manageable. In fact, I will probably switch them all out to some other hardware where you can actually, it's a 6-point with an Allen wrench on the end. I'm not sure I was able to torque them all down. I got them pretty tight. All right, next step, the Y pipe. Picked up some hardware and gaskets for that, about 25 bucks, maybe and change. But we'll clean these off, and then we're gonna get under the car and put those on. Clean it up a little bit. Well, seeing a new problem, that's not good. Those are the transmission lines, and they just got it wrapped all around through here. So, okay, well, new little project. Ugh. Okay, we got the other side balanced up with a block. Hopefully that gets it somewhat close to alignment. This is tight. Whew, it is very tight. Well, I'm gonna have to put the phone down for this part. Gotta tighten one of these up a little bit. Not too much. Good. Let's get those others in now. Got them all in. Now it's time to tighten them all down. Not easy. A lot of wiggling back and forth. Just take some time and patience. All right, a couple days later, headers are on, Y pipe is on. Y pipe was a bit of a struggle, but we got it. All right, thanks for watching. Join in next time when we do the oil sending unit as well as distributor.